Good morning and welcome to Rising Match Day. I'm Owain Evans, ready to preview tonight's Rising game against Tampa Bay Rowdies. Coming up on the show. With the season getting well underway, we take a look at what's happening across the Pacific Division. It's a fixture that should have happened 6 months ago, but will there be any unfinished business to handle today? And of course, storylines are all well and good, but what can we expect to happen on the pitch? We'll have a look at Tampa Bay. Well, we've got a lot to get through today, and I'm joined by Ashley Orellana. Ashley, hello, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad. Well, before we get ahead of ourselves, let's start with what happened last weekend as Rising took on Oakland Roots. So Oakland, a new team in USL Championship, they previously played down in the third tier, arguably a bit of a trial by fire for them to start against Rising. And not a great start for them with this one. It's badly given away there. Dadashov can't capitalise, but it falls to Solomon Asante who does.
Yeah, I think that this was such a good rebound on Asante just to be there and in the right positioning. It was well executed.
Just into the second half, it's a huge ball forward there from James Musa. Santimo running onto it. With the strike and the keeper just can't deal with it through his legs, rising up by 2.
This was such a fantastic goal. First of all, it started with Ben in the back, our new goalkeeper, and then James Musa with just the perfect touch for that ball to get it to Santimar, who executed it just fantastic.
About 20 minutes later, Roots looking to play out at the back. That was a bad idea with Solomon Asante right there. He makes it free.
Yep, never bet against the captain, and he just made you regret that immediately.
Really, really poor decision to play it that way. Well, 2 minutes on the clock there from that, and Roots looking to attack. They do get a shot off. It's a weak shot. Easy enough save. Actually, that was Ben Lunt's first save of the game in the 69th minute. And it was one of only 2 saves he had to make. What a debut he had with the clean sheet. Well, in the end, Rising take it 3-0. Here's the post-game reaction.
With the way we like to press and be aggressive, and then to have center backs to play that well, I thought Musa and Toby were fantastic. Overall, it's exactly what we expected. I think Wallfall getting hurt early kind of helped us a little bit in midfield.
I think our aggressive mentality has been key for us this season. 2 games, but we're on the front foot. We're aggressive. We get goals from winning the ball up high on the field, and that's who we are. That's Phoenix Rising.
It's just communication, defending as a unit. We're very intense with our pressing. We're not giving the other team time to breathe, and we're just confident in what we're doing.
Again, I think our midfield is just right now working so hard, but I thought Musa was very good. Of course, Solo scored 2 goals, and I've seen him do that with so many goalkeepers where they try to pass it out, and he's so quick laterally. I hope you guys all realize that it's not really a mistake from the goalkeeper. This kid is just unbelievably quick and anticipates. He's doing that on purpose.
So Ashley, second win on the bounce to start the season. What are your main takeaways from it?
I think that our forwards and captain, Solomon Asante, just really stepped it up this game and made his presence known. He had 2 goals and almost a hat trick, and we have just genuinely missed Solomon, and he just reminded everyone that, yeah, I'm still the captain and I still do this. I still score. And also not to have keepers just randomly pass it out of the back because, he'll take advantage of that. I also think that Santi Moore is going to have a season. He has just really shown us that he really wants it and has stepped up his game tremendously compared to last season. And I'm truly excited for what he has in store for us. And then we also had James Musa out of the back, who really made his presence known in our defense compared to last season. And I think that has been a genuine asset for the team. He also had the assist with Moore's goal. So overall, I think it was a solid performance. I do think our midfield could have stepped it up just a tad, but overall, a solid win.
Well, another game where it feels like Rising, almost walks away with it, and yet comes away with a smaller chunk of the possession. What do you read into that, I guess, from these last two games?
I think a big part of that is that you don't always have to maintain possession throughout a whole game in order to capitalize on goals. If the other team is just going to be very timid because Rising is such a force and hold it in the back, then let them waste their energy, let them just keep passing around the back, and then capitalize on those moments when they mess up and when you can strike and then they regret their lives. So I don't think possession for Rising right now is an indicator of how well they are playing.
Well, Rising hasn't been the only Pacific in that season. Sacramento on a good run as well. They've won they've won their first two games as well as Rising. They beat Las Vegas earlier this week. What do you make of their start to the season?
Well, I think a huge indicator will be when Rising plays SAC at the end of the month. SAC is a force to be reckoned with. I think that they have a solid team. And I also think that people underestimate them from time to time, that in certain games, they think that they won't perform, and then SAC comes out and gets the win. But I also do think that SAC sometimes does tend to not show up. So they're just kind of like Rising in a sense, where you have good games and then you have not so good games, but you can still come out with a win. So having them play against each other, I think, will be a really good indicator of who actually wants to win.
And at the other end of the table, it's been an awful start for San Diego. After their poor showing in the opener against Rising, they went on to play in RGV. They lost there. They went on to play in Tacoma, and they lost there. How concerned do you think that San Diego fans should be right now?
Man, I will say I'm just as shocked as San Diego fans. Going into the season, I was really nervous about San Diego's lineup. Out of everyone, I thought if Rising had a real competitor, it was going to be San Diego, just because of all the new additions they had, and they had a lot of returning players. And as we saw from last season, towards the end of the season, San Diego got extremely good. So I was really, really concerned with that lineup. So I am genuinely confused as to what exactly is not gelling. You watch this team and they're all frustrated with each other. They're all not in sync. And it's almost like I feel like I'm watching a club team that my sister plays against. And where, the coaches are just like, why are you playing that defense? I taught you this when you were 4. You shouldn't be playing this. So it's just interesting for me. I think San Diego fans should be just a tad worried, because if they play Louisville and lose, I would be very concerned. If they play Louisville and they either come out with a tie or win, I wouldn't be as concerned. They have had all of their games on the road, which is very difficult. But yeah, I don't think it's very good for them right now. And Landon, what changes are you going to make, buddy? So, yeah.
I think there were, by the end time that game ended, 3 players on the field for Tacoma that would have been able to go out after the game and celebrate with a beer. Doesn't look good, but worth noting, of course, as you said, Louisville up next doesn't really get any easier for them, because in the next 5 after that, they're playing Phoenix twice, Orange County. They've got LA Galaxy 2, and yes, of course, they've got Las Vegas, which you'd have thought they should win, but there's definitely some tough games there. They're looking to get back on track. Well, let's look at how the table stands. Remember, the top 4 sides in each division making it to the playoffs, and as expected, Phoenix Rising and Sacramento right up there having picked up maximum points. Los Dos, however, topping the table, although they have played 2 additional games, they've got 7 points. Tacoma in a playoff spot? It's strange to look at, but with Orange County yet to start their season, that's where they are. That's surely not what it's going to look like at the end, is it?
No, I definitely don't think so. I mean, Orange County and Tacoma are playing on Sunday, so it'll be interesting to see what Orange County shows us. And LA Galaxy at number 1, that's not going to stay there for much longer. But yeah, Tacoma coming out with a win against San Diego really, really helped them a lot. But I think it also kind of showed the other teams that they might be young, but they are very talented. So to not just, I think we tend to take MLS2 teams as a write-off win and like, oh, easy game, easy 3 points. So for them, I think it's just, hey, we might be young, we might be an MLS2 team, but you're not going to get an easy 3 points off of us. So
speaking of 2 teams, Las Vegas Lights just languishing at the bottom of the table. They've really not been a good start for the second team to LAFC.
Yeah, no, that one's just been such an interesting move of sorts. I don't even think, I mean, I've been trying to follow it, but I don't think a lot of people understand what's really going on. They'll randomly be like, by the way, we signed like, I think it was 8 players in one day. It's like, and then I feel bad for their fans, to be honest, because they're just constantly in this loophole of what is going on. They didn't even have a kit reveal. It was like, here's one of our guys wearing a kit. So, but yeah, that one, to me, that's an unfortunate situation. I'm sad that LAFC kind of took over and just doesn't seem to really have a plan. So it's very interesting.
Interesting indeed. Well, let's move on now and look ahead to tonight. This is a game that was supposed to be played 6 months ago in the USL Championship playoff final. Indeed, it was a game that both of us were supposed to be at. Didn't quite turn out that way, though, with multiple positive tests on the Rowdies side. Well, now the league is billing this one as unfinished business. But is it? Here's what Rick Shantz had to say.
Nobody thinks that we're actually going to play a cup final this week. You know, it's great to be tested against a very good team in the Eastern Conference, one of the best, and, you know, kind of see where we stand this early in the season. But it's really just like we joked about it today, actually, in training, and because there was a tie at the end of our small-sided, and I said, how should we solve it? And we said, everyone gets a trophy. So it was, some of the guys were like, it's too soon, coach. But it's not been the unfinished business is the fact that we need to get back to the final and we need to play in a final again. It's not playing Tampa Bay Rowdies. It's winning the USL Championship.
Well, that's what Rick had to say. Similar sentiments out of Neil Collins over in Tampa Bay. But does he fear that with his side responsible ultimately for the postponement, that there'll be any added motivation for the Phoenix?
I don't think it's up to them. But then what motivates them is up to Phoenix. And their players, you know, we've got our own motivations that are driven from the internal point of view. External factors don't really motivate us. It's just about what we want to do for each other, the team, the club. But if that's the case, then good luck. Good luck to them. And I mean, as I say, we know it's going to make for a good game, but I'm not concerned about that.
So Ashley, both camps playing down the narrative. Do you agree with that sentiment or not?
Yeah, I 100% agree with it. I don't think it's a matter of, you know, rivalry. I think USL is trying to create this like weird rivalry, or that like these teams have it out against each other, or that, you know, they really are longing to have this game. I really think that USL had kind of killed these guys' spirits when they just decided, no, there's going to be no winner and there's going to be no championship. It wasn't even like they had tried to reschedule it, at least from what we see. And a lot of these guys on the rosters are completely different. We only have 9 returning from last season for Rising. So there's only 9 guys who understand what happened with not going to the championship or being in Tampa, and then all of a sudden it's canceled. And then we only have 14 returning from the Rowdies roster too. So in all, you only have 23 guys who understand kind of what's going on. But I don't really think that there's going to be this whole, oh yeah, like, we're in it to win the cup. I think both teams kind of have, maybe Rising more so. Actually, let me rephrase that. Rising definitely more so have this kind of sense of, we're going to win it. We're actually going to win the whole thing this season.
Both sides, of course, making changes. Let's just take a look at the lineups for their last games. And as you can see, there's no fewer than 5 of the starting 11 for Phoenix. They just weren't here last season. It's a bit less over in Tampa. There were 3 new players for them. This is undoubtedly a very different match we would have seen last November. Then what are they motivating themselves with? Here's Rowdy's Zach Steinberger.
I'm excited to play a really good team. It's a team that we don't ever get to play. And they're a team that's very well respected in the West. And so for that reason, I'm excited to test ourselves as a team against, arguably the best in the West and to see how we stack up.
Ashley, would you agree with the sentiment that these 2 teams are the best 2 teams in the league?
Yeah, I would say that they're the best 2 teams in the league. Rising consistently has proven themselves as the best in the West. And Tampa Bay Rowdies is definitely a force to be dealt with. And I think it's interesting that the 2 teams have actually swapped players as seasons come and go. We saw Mustafa on Rising in the 2019 season, and then 2020 he was on the Rowdies. Junior Flemings had came from the Rowdies. And so we just kind of see that we tend to share players back and forth. So it's unsurprising that both of them are the top 2 in both sides of the league.
Darnell King, of course, lined up alongside Neil when they both played in Tampa. Neil, obviously, now their head coach. But it's a different challenge for Rising tonight. Travelling away from home for the first time this season. What kind of a challenge is that, though? Here's Aiden Quinn.
Yeah, it's gonna be different for sure. I think it's a little bit of adversity. I think we're playing a really good team in Tampa. They've always been really good at home, so it's gonna be tough. The weather's gonna be a little different. I think it's gonna be definitely more humid. So we're gonna have to face some challenges, but I think it's good for us. It's gonna help us grow and get better. But and it's really gonna see where we're at.
So, Ashley, can you see the lack of a home backing making a difference tonight in this game when it comes to Rising?
Rising, it is known for its fans and its atmosphere, and almost every team that plays at Rising Stadium can tell you that how difficult it is, just with the intense atmosphere, and that is 100% credit to our amazing fan base and our club and club owners as well. So for them to completely go to Florida, I think it'll be new, it'll be fun. Okay, we've never done where we've gone to the East Coast. We've with COVID we tend to stay on the West Coast, so now they're allowing us to go to the East Coast, and I think it'll be really fun just to see the guys not in a playoff setting play a really good team and just see how we stack up against them, because we never really know until we're in a playoff setting, and I think that's unfortunate sometimes. So I think this will be a good game. I've heard that the Rowdies fan base is really intense, so we'll just see how it measures up. Maybe the boys will just totally be prepared for it because, I feel like they have the most intense fan base out of the league. So who really compares to that then?
Get into the nitty-gritty now, and what should we expect to see out of Tampa Bay on the pitch? Here's Rick Shantz's take.
Well, they've added Dos Santos up front, which is a huge addition to them because now they have a target forward. I think they were such a well-organized defensive group last year that, with Tejada, Guenzati, they would spring you on the counter. They could find spaces in behind, and technically very gifted. They get a lot of numbers forward, but now if you have them pinned back and they play out, they have a guy that can hold the ball up, and it makes them really multidimensional. So extremely difficult team to game plan against, a lot like San Diego, very similar system. He likes to bring those wingers way inside and play as double tens and a single nine. So the good news for us is we've faced the same tactical scenario 2 weeks ago. Won't be anything of a surprise, but this team I think is a little more physical and a little more powerful than most.
So Ashley, people often look to Tampa Bay's defence when they take on a team like Rising, but with 6 goals in their last 2 games, what can we expect out of their attack against Rising's defence?
I think it'll be interesting. We do have a very solid defense compared to last season. So it will be more difficult for him to create the runs and to score the goals. I do think having Ben now to fill in for Rawls has been a way better asset to the team. That was something that I was incredibly nervous about, but Ben has really stepped up to the plate. So, and then obviously we have Musa and Toby in the back who have just been phenomenal in shutting down. I think if anything, it would just be making sure that our left and right backs make sure that they track back on counterattacks, which have been a known issue for Rising. So, but I don't really see that being as big of an issue with Flood on the one side.
We touched on the possession earlier with Rising getting less of the ball in both games. Well, Tampa's had more possession so far in each game. How does that impact the planning? Here's the word from Rowdies coach Neil Collins.
Well, I think having possession is one of the best ways to negate that, because if we've got the ball and we are in control of possession, then that's a big part of our defensive record. Is not just the way we defend, but how we keep the ball. But like you mentioned, then Phoenix being able to counter on any mistakes is something that we'll need to be very aware of. I think to give their games some context, they scored early in both of those games, which I think then changes the opposition's risk. So they were much more willing to risk the ball and have the ball, and Phoenix were more than happy to let them have it, knowing that they'd already got leads. We had to be a little bit more patient, certainly in our first game. But we want to be at home and we want to have the ball. But I think we're always willing to do what it takes to win the game. And for any reason we're not having the ball, we'll adapt. But the plan will be to play our way, implement our style, and just make the adjustments for their strengths without changing too much. Because if you change too much, you lose your own identity, and then it can become a bit fractured, the performance.
Do you think we'll see much of the same then from both of these two sides tonight?
Here's the interesting thing about possession is that possession typically equals momentum. And what you don't want is for the other team to have momentum. And if the other team does have momentum, how are you going to counter that? How are you going to shut down momentum? How are you going to irritate them? And so I think if Rising is going to keep on this trend where they don't have as much possession as the other team, well, how are you going to frustrate them? How are you still going to indirectly have control of the game? So I think it'll just be interesting to see if they change their tactic. We know that Rick tends to have this tendency where if it's working and we're winning, we're going to keep with that. So I don't think that we'll really see a change from Rising's end, and I don't really think we'll see a change from the Rowdies' end. If we do see changes, I think it will happen at halftime. Once the teams kind of understand who they're playing against. They haven't played each other in I don't even know how long. Years. We can say years now, but it'll just be interesting. But yeah, I tend to find that possession definitely equals momentum. So that can be dangerous for Rising, but we'll see how they play it in their favor.
All right then, so I'm going to put you on the spot. What would be your score prediction for tonight?
I'm gonna go with 3-2 Rising.
Confident then?
Tight game.
Then, well, that's all that we have time for this morning. Remember, it's an early kickoff at 5 p.m. Arizona time. Tonight's game live on ESPN2. Ashley, thank you for joining me. And for those of you at home, enjoy the match tonight. Goodbye.